Welcome, everyone, to the Inside Line F1 podcast. And we start off with a statement which could well be confused as a question. But let's just put it out there. Kunal is the one who wrote the title. So we'll put it out to him. Max will score big. Did you mean that with a question mark or with a full stop, Kunal? What do you mean in this Brazilian GP preview?
I mean that with a full stop. And there are a couple of reasons. Firstly, when it's a sprint and a Grand Prix weekend, Max is always done well, but there is numerology behind that. What do you get for scoring full Grand Prix win? 25 points.
Hmm.
What do you get for scoring a full sprint win? 3 points. Oh, sorry, 5 points. 8 points.
Eight
Sorry.
points.
All right. 25 plus 8 is 33. And who's driver number 33? That's numerology for you. But there's one more thing. Yes, Lewis Hamilton was given honorary citizenship of Brazil in 2022. Yes, Gabriel Bortoleto has his home race. So there are two drivers with home races. But this is where Max's in-laws stay. And typically, when are you at your best? When are you at your sharpest?
Oh, we couldn't have started off on a better note. My goodness, what observation. Seriously.
And what a spicy set of in-laws to have, man. Hey, what a spicy set of in-laws to have. My God.
What does that mean, spicy? I mean,
Who's not gonna call Nelson Piquet Senior spicy? I think spicy is the most kind word you can use for him now in today's day and age, can't you?
yeah, I
He was
guess
spicy
so.
back then as well when he
Oh,
was
very.
racing.
Wasn't he the one who sort of fed Nigel Mansell some chilies, and that's how he got diarrhea before the Mexican Grand Prix? That's we really do mean spicy. We really do. But what a spicy weekend ahead, no, Sundaram? The Brazilian Grand Prix. It's always a turning page in the entire season. It's always where things change over. I mean, flashback to last year. This is when we put the final nail in Lando Norris's championship challenge coffin, where Max Verstappen won from P. I don't even remember where. Was it
17.
17?
17.
And where Alpine, of all the teams, got a double podium that elevated them from P9 to P6, which means, yeah, there is real hope for Haas and Aston Martin this weekend. But it's Brazil, and to top it all off, as Kunal mentioned, we have a sprint weekend this weekend, so there's a lot that's about to change.
I mean, it is Brazil, and things often change here. And there's no better example than what happened in 2008 at this very track. It's never over at Interlagos until it's actually over. Because even in last year's race, Lando Norris was leading comfortably, and he was due to be on the podium, but weather came in the way, and there was a little bit of a strategic decision that had to be taken. McLaren went one way, Red Bull went another way, and look how it benefited them. Max Verstappen winning from P17 from P to P1, not completely just a driving masterclass, but also the team in the pit lane being a great help for them. And wasn't this the race where Lando Norris said, what did he say? No talent, all luck, something of that sort? Wasn't this the same race? So yes, things can change, and it can in a spicy way for a lot of drivers, but it's a beautiful track. Lots of things, a lot of factors that come into play. It's a sprint weekend. It cannot get bigger than this. One of the few races where weather might still be at play before the triple header in Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. So it's a big weekend.
It is really a big weekend, and 33 points for the winner this time out. We're honestly looking at the sprints and going that Max Verstappen is going to win, right? Because if we have to ask a question, who is the undisputed king of F1 sprints? And hence, who's going to score the most in Brazil? I think we all are going to point to the same direction, Kunal. It has to be Max Verstappen.
it has to be Max Verstappen. I mean, there have been 22 sprints in the history of Formula One. Max has won 18 of them, right? Actually, no, he's won 13 of them,
13.
but he's been on the podium 18 times. Okay. And Max's all time sprint championship points, if you call it that, have been 133. And second is Charles Leclerc with just 80 points. So that's how decisive Max Verstappen has been in the sprint format. And in the last two sprints that we've had in 2025, Max has led every single lap. And I'm just getting started with just how how mighty he can be in the sprint.
And I'm more excited because knowing it's a sprint and knowing that we have two starts at Interlagos means there's going to be more chaos. Remember 2021, Lewis Hamilton last to first? He did that like twice because he came all the way from the back of the grid in the sprint as well and then did something similar in the Grand Prix too. And to make matters even more interesting, the weather is fun. If it's Brazil, Sundaram, somehow it's always raining. I think it's beautiful. I think it's poetic. I think that Skyfall transition reel that's gone viral does come to mind all the time. But if it's Brazil, it's gonna rain. Just ask Felipe Massa about
Just don't ask him about it.
it.
He's not going to want to hear that. But rain and weather is such a crucial thing around Interlagos. It's also a track where, even without rain, there's a lot of degradation, the very high track temperatures as well. But the moment weather comes into the picture and it starts raining, it's all haywire. It's all chaotic, and you never really know who's going to end up where. Alpine had a double podium last year, and they jumped from P8 to P6. So it's also one of those very few circuits where you can literally overtake at every single corner, and I think that's one of the most interesting characteristics for Interlagos for me. If you go back in time and you think about it, you might remember at least one overtake at each of the different corners that this circuit has, which is a very unique feature, which is also why you see one of the highest average overtakes of the season at this very venue. So you can setup has to be built around what suits your car. You cannot go with the thought that on this straight or on this section we are free from being overtaken. That doesn't happen at Interlagos. So it'll be a busy week. It'll be a busy race throughout the sprint and also the Grand Prix, and lots of interesting things will happen.
I believe so. I believe so. There's going to be overtaking. There's going to be defending. Like you said, two starts, two opening laps. I think that's what adds to the joy. It's like the sprint race, which everyone always debates. Like, is that a good format? Does it even need to be 100 kilometers of racing? It's like the sprint race was made for Interlagos first, and
Exactly.
and then I would say Austria as well, because those circuits literally can give you some bonkers of racing. So the sprint race at Interlagos, please have it every time. But here's one small note on why F1 continues to persist with the sprint format, because there is a set of fans who keep saying they love the sprint, right? They are seeing, F1 is seeing in the data that I think sprints actually have 10 or 12% more viewership than the Grand Prix. So F1 is just going completely based on data, and that's why the sprint is here to stay. And of course, sprint means more money for Formula One. The promoters pay to
Mhm.
have a sprint race format because there is more opening laps, more starts, more drama. Pretty much every day of the weekend, there is some action. Then the teams get paid to have, to participate in more sprints as well. And the FIA has also been asking for more money to adjudicate more sprint races. And if it was not for the FIA putting a bit of a comma in the expansion of sprints, maybe we would have more sprint races in 2025 and 2026 as well. So all set to play for this weekend. And I think it's going to be an overtaking fest. And that's what I'm literally looking out for. And I hope some defending as well, because Brazil can offer multiple lines through some of those corners. And that's when, so many battles are going on through my mind, Somal.
Yeah, so many. But quick opinion timeout. Guys, do we love the sprint? Yes or no? I love the sprint. I really do. Less practice is good for F1. I love the sprint.
I love the sprint as well. And I love the fact that drivers and teams are just thrown into it. I love that there are two starts, two opening laps. I think that is crucial. Uh, I know that the sprint format suits some races and some conditions more than the others, but that's true about everything in life, right? Everything can't just be perfect everywhere all the time. So I'm pretty bullish about the sprint format in general.
I think, see, if you consider just the sprint races, if you just take all the 22 sprint races, I think most of them have not been very exciting. Many of them have been very processional, because beyond the first corner or beyond the first lap, everyone's just trying to keep things between the two walls, and not try something very aggressive before the next set of sessions. And that kind of robs you of seeing any sort of racing that can happen or any sort of battles that can happen. So generally, if you consider just the sprint, it's pretty okay, but I wouldn't say it's been fantastic as such. But what it does overall for the whole race weekend, like Somil said, it reduces practice sessions by that much. There's only so much time that you can have to figure out your setups, and that then leads to a very chaotic race weekend in general. So I love having sprint weekends overall, but sprints are a nice format. I wouldn't say I hate it as much.
It's a good point, but my challenge is that's in general about Formula One. There's this stat
Yeah.
that's come
Yeah.
that out of the 20 races, 14 have been won from pole position. George Russell said in Kota that Formula One's now become a dash to turn one. Whoever leads out of turn one pretty much ends up winning the race. So that's in general. But I get what you're saying. Sprint takes away the element of strategy, the element of tires. But
Yeah.
even tires are such a hit and miss thing. In Mexico, for once, we had tires where you could do a two stop and still get onto the podium versus a one stopper. But the races before that, even though they were step compounds or skip compounds, whatever it's called, we couldn't really get there. So there's lots of hits and misses. But Praveen is saying sprint itself is not that interesting, but it's popular due to the competitive element of it. So in general, I guess we've just been forced to accept the sprint format, and maybe I get a feeling there will be more sprints in the years to come.
I like that. If anything, Formula One should just generally come up with this format all throughout, I feel. Not just have a sprint weekend every weekend, but less practice. Because these are the best teams and best drivers in the world. If they have the best simulation tools in the world, show us how good your simulation tools are. Simple. And that's where you can see people like Kevin Magnussen take pole position, which, by the way, has happened in this track. Sorry, which, by the way, has happened at this track in 2022. So it's a real possibility. Interlagos does tend to throw up real crazy incidents like this, like Magnussen on pole, or both the Alpines getting a double podium, or the championship being decided at the last corner. Or, I mean, if you've got to think of it, there's just so many more moments, right, Kunal? Like so many more moments. Pierre Gasly actually beating, wasn't it Lewis Hamilton on the line with his Honda power unit when Lewis was in peak Mercedes? That was a crazy moment too.
Yeah, can you imagine? And that was Honda power. That was not the time when Honda was the power unit everyone wanted. There was also, I get Perez and Alonso a couple of years ago, just to the line.
Yeah.
My favorite has to be Jos Verstappen taking out, I think, Juan Pablo Montoya several years ago. And when Max was taken out by Esteban Ocon, he said that was actually karma. My dad took out the race leader and somebody took me out when I was leading the race. I believe uh, Lance Stroll last year, formation lap, mixed
I
weather
was wondering
conditions.
when are we going to talk about
Had
that. I
to
was
happen.
wondering when are we going to
He
talk
Had
about
to
that.
he
happen.
drove onto the gravel to retire. He drove onto the gravel. Nobody can convince me on that. Then one of the other favorites was Kimi Raikkonen. I think
Hey,
this was
sorry.
in his.
If Niki Lauda can bring his car into the pit lane to retire because he cannot see a lot, who's to blame Lance Stroll for it? Sorry, like that's just
That's below
that's
the
wrong
belt.
of you.
That is below the belt.
That's
So,
judgmental. That's judgmental of us. We need to understand the intentions.
but I'll continue with more moments we've had. I think it was Sebastian Vettel spinning in 2012. It was his, he had to
Beautiful.
clinch. He had to clinch the race win or some points to win the drivers' championship. And Michael Schumacher let him just drive past. I remember that. When did we see that happen ever? And I think
Why are we talking about that race? That race is forbidden to be
Oh,
spoken
what a
about.
beautiful race that was, Sundaram. What
that's
a
when you realize Adrian Newey builds tanks with that impact that Vettel had
Actually,
taken.
we
But
need to talk about that race for more than one reason because you were there, Kunal. Like, not maybe there at the Grand Prix,
yeah,
but you were there with the team at that time, and your driver could have won. It could have been Nico
yes,
Hulkenberg's first podium.
it could have been, and then he spins it on turn one, and then suddenly you realize, okay, he needs more time in Formula One, right? But there's also 2016, I believe. No, it was before that. Kimi Raikkonen in the Lotus goes off at the final corner.
12.
2012, yes. He drives through the old support paddock pit lane, and then suddenly the gate is shut, and he has to turn back around. And then he comes back and says, "Actually, he did that in 2001, and those gates were open. Went and shut them? I'm going to get it to be opened next year." So, Brazil, in what 40 odd years that we've been racing at Interlagos, has given us such beautiful memories, including, I think at least 7 title wins that have happened in Brazil, because I grew up to Brazil being the last race on the calendar, and so many races went down to the wire. Samuel, I'm going to trick you on this. Do you remember which races which title fights went down to the wire and were settled in Brazil? And I'm going to take the easy one away, which is 2007, Massa and Hamilton.
Okay, Sundaram, tag team. 2007, 2008,
Yeah.
2012.
9 as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nine
yeah,
as
9
well.
as well. How can I
So,
forget?
so
My
2012,
beloved.
2012 was
5 as
Sebastian
well.
Vettel. 9 was Jensen Button. Yeah.
5.
5 was also settled in,
Fernando
in
Alonso.
Brazil.
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso.
6 was China or Brazil?
No,
6 was
6 was
China.
also Brazil.
What do you
Brazil.
say?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it
Even
was Brazil. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think
So
so.
we
The
got
championship.
5,
Okay, yeah, 5.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You said 12 also. And I think
12.
2017, Lewis would have also been
Oh, no,
settled
no,
there.
no, 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 no. That was Mexico City, wasn't it? That is
I'm
Mexico
wondering when was the
City.
last time the title was decided here?
12.
Uh,
It never was after that, was it?
12, correct. After
But,
12, it
but
flipped on the
what I mean
drivers.
is, even if Brazil was not the last, but was a title decided at Brazil. So I don't mean to say was Brazil the last race and was the title decided there. So I've just complicated it.
Oh, well, in that really does complicate it.
Then in 5, it wasn't the last race. In 9, it wasn't the last race. I think 9 was Abu Dhabi, the last race. Yeah. 5, Alonso won it with a few rounds to spare. And I think in 9, it was also not the last race. Every other race it was.
Well,
At least for the drivers.
Praveen has a take on it. He's spoken about one of those races. Praveen on YouTube chat says the first Formula One race I watched was Interlagos 2012, and I've watched every race since then, and that is why I'm also a huge fan of Nico Hulkenberg. Shout out, man! That's a beautiful race to watch. Is lovely. But why
How
did
many
you
of you
choose
remember
Nico?
that Nico Hulkenberg had a pole at this very track in 2010?
2010 in his first season in a
First
Williams.
season at Williams.
What a beautiful day.
No one's mentioned Alonso's deck chair in 2015.
Oh, yeah, there was a
2015.
Deck chair moment.
Max Verstappen's car
Leclerc,
control with the where the commentator said, "What a
2016.
fucking car control!" They literally said it on TV. It's so good.
You know what I love
2016.
what I love
Yeah.
is we've discussed on track as well as off track moments over all these years of having Interlagos. And my best entry line for introducing Interlagos was that, of course, we all know Interlagos means between the lakes. You'll hear this multiple times. That's the drinking game for this weekend. But the other is that Interlagos was actually built on land not suitable for housing. Can you imagine? Land not suitable for housing has been so beautifully suiting motor racing all these years.
Did you know it was actually once also a championship starter, like the opening round of the season, and that is
Yes,
like the old Interlagos. So
which
many
is
moments here, Sundaram.
2 times
So
the size or 2 times the length, right?
And we haven't even spoken about Ayrton Senna at this very track, or Rubens Barrichello, or we've not gone beyond, we've not gone before 2005 at all. But there's so many historic moments and iconic
So there's
moments at this very track.
Fittipaldi, Piquet, Senna, Massa, Barrichello,
I think once
Drogovic.
PK, yeah, once PK came, they moved away from Interlagos to Rio de Janeiro. But yeah, lots and lots of iconic moments through 40 years of Interlagos. I think it's going to be the 6th most visited track on the calendar, and lots of championships decided here, and a very interesting track as well. Lots of elevation change as well at this very track. There's so much that happens at this very venue. My goodness, we can't end.
yeah,
Are we talking
like
about the circuit? Because that's another pet favorite.
honestly, Interlagos is irreplaceable. At this point, you cannot create any circuit to take its place. You cannot bring back any circuit. Even if you put the Nürburgring Nordschleife, I don't think it can replace Interlagos. It really can't. It really cannot.
It cannot, it should not, And I know there were talks of taking the race to Rio, where somebody else is paying more money to have it, and so on. But I hope it never happens, because this circuit, like we've just discussed, so many on track, off track moments that are there. And I know we said this, sector 1 and 3, you need low drag. Guess what? Red Bull would probably love it. Sector 2, all the twisty stuff. You need a very strong front end. And who loves the strong front end when he gets one? It's Max Verstappen. And like you said, Sundaram, there is elevation changes. I think from turn 12 to turn 1 is again the number 33 is playing. It's 33 meters climbing up. Turns 1 to turns 5 is a 40-meter drop. So it's like a roller coaster. Esteban Ocon called it. This is like being in a roller coaster in a go-kart, right? And I so love these references, because we can't drive it. This is the only way we can sort of imagine what it feels like, because there are so many wonderful turns that are there around this circuit, including runoff areas that drivers have used controversially in the past.
Oh, exactly. And we've actually seen a lot of that in Mexico. But here's a fun fact. So the first sequence of corners is called the Senna S's.
Yes.
And that's, of course, named after Ayrton Senna. So Interlagos is one of 3 circuits where a section of the track is named after a driver, and that driver has raced on that section during his F1 career. So
ask me who
one-
the other two are. Ask me who the
go
other two
ahead. Go ahead.
are.
One's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's the Hamilton Straight, and it's the
Yes.
Schumacher race at Nürburgring.
Yes, absolutely right. The only 3 circuits befitting of their legacies, and yeah, it's wonderful.
Since we're
What
doing
about the
quizzes,
Stroll S at Montreal? What about the Stroll S? Turn number 1. Anyone?
is it a Stroll S? Do they call it that? Because there
I
is a
think it
Stroll
should
Grand.
be. Shouldn't it be?
You're just giving the slowest corner of the circuit to one
Well,
of the
he's the
slowest.
most. He's the Canadian driver with the most Formula One appearances, so he deserves.
And
He's
corners.
also the driver with the most Q1 exits in 2025. 14 Q1 exits. So just when we discussed 14 out of 20 races have been won from pole, 14 out of 20 races Lance Stroll has not made it to Q1. And in fact, this weekend, Fernando Alonso might just equal the record of maximum times out qualifying your teammate. I think it was Verstappen versus Perez in 23-24. And now Alonso might have it. It's either 32 or 33 times. Again, the number 33 is coming up. I'm telling you, there is some numerology in this race weekend. But let's do this again. You said who quiz that you just guys had. I think Brazil is the 4th shortest circuit on the calendar. Name the other 3. Let's go.
Monaco, Zandvoort.
Monaco,
Zandvoort.
We just had
Austria?
one. No.
Mexico City, 4 kilometers.
Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, 4 kilometers. But one sec. This is not the Brazilian GP. This is the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And this wasn't always the case. There's clearly a reason behind it, Kunal. What is the reason? Enlighten us.
It's all down to who is paying the money and what they want to call the race. So if Sommel wants to host Formula One and call it the Sommel Grand Prix, you can
yes.
have it.
Oh, yes. Just like Stewart Grand Prix. Just like Stewart. So you're saying Brazil is not paying money. Sao Paulo is paying money.
Yeah, or even if Sao Paulo has been paying money all these years, and they were okay with calling it the Brazilian Grand Prix, which is a national name. Maybe now they've changed it to saying no, call it
selfish.
But that's what they want to increase tourism. They want to increase visibility for their city, which is what's bearing the cost, and it's expensive to host Formula One. So they're finally being cost effective in their choices and names as well. But that's why it's not called the Brazilian Grand Prix. I just still call it that though. And the bummer is when you look at all the statistical records and history, so many drivers won the Brazilian Grand Prix, but hey, there have been just 5 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Okay, so I think at least from a records point of view, just have all the same thing.
Ain't that right, Sundaram?
It's a headache for me at every race weekend, thinking about the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, thinking about the Styrian Grand Prix, Austrian Grand Prix, and all the different names that some of these circuits end up having. And you always tend to miss out that one race, especially when we talk about Bahrain. I often forget the Sakir Grand Prix as well that happened for one season. So it's a headache for bookkeepers, and another one headache that people, statisticians like me, have had at this very race. Who remembers?
4 members?
I think there was that. I think the Kevin Magnussen race.
Yes,
Magnussen.
yes, yes.
s-
You're
It was
almost
it
there.
was a it was it was it was a confusion between at that year whoever won the sprint would
Oh,
start on
yes.
pole.
The pole sitter confusion.
Yeah, there was this whole
It's the
thing about
confusion.
pole sitter. Yeah, I remember that. It was one of
I
those.
remember you being very annoyed about it, Sundaram. I remember we had like 5 minutes on the podcast that year where you were just saying it should not be this way.
I get annoyed every year when this race turns up after that. So, for all our viewers, the thing is, through 7 decades of Formula One, the driver who starts the race from the first position on the starting grid is often called the pole sitter. And throughout these 7 decades, people have often felt it is synonymous to the person who qualifies the fastest. Case in point, Michael Schumacher was the quickest driver in qualifying in Monaco in 2012, but actually he had a grid penalty. So he was not the pole sitter, but Mark Webber was. So it's always about who starts the Grand Prix from P1. Now, cut to 2022, sprint formats was something that everyone wanted to experiment with, and they kind of tweaked with this little definition of pole position. So they basically said, Formula One, that whoever qualifies quickest in qualifying is the pole sitter by definition, but they will start only the sprint from pole. And whoever wins that sprint then takes P1 in the Grand Prix, but they are not the pole sitter. So, Brazil 2022, Kevin Magnussen was the pole sitter. He didn't start the Grand Prix from P1. George Russell started the race from P1, and I couldn't say that George won from pole. I had to say he starts from P1.
Strange things. Only Formula One with all these experiments that keep happening. And I can imagine this is a pub quiz question already. You don't even have to. You don't even
Yes.
have to wait
Yeah.
several years in the line. But we have a title battle on our hands, and it's even though just 4 races remain, we have 116 points in the drivers' championship. It's not equally divided. There are 33 points available, which is about 28.5% of the points available this weekend. So this race will have a larger impact on the drivers' championship, as will Qatar, because there's sprint and there's qualifying. And here's more numerology playing in Max Verstappen's hands. Max has scored 116 points in the last 5 races. And for the next 4 races, there are 116 points available in the drivers' championship. And yes, this is better than having double points for the finale, which is also what we had, one of those Bernie Eccleston moments that were there. But the question I want to ask you guys is, has Oscar Piastri peaked? And has he peaked too early in 2025?
There's
Come
a very
on.
good chance. There's a very good chance. But I think no. No. And this is what we will all see proven wrong in Interlagos. Yes, slow grip circuits can upset it. And he's not been that bad, like only marginally bad, but then that compounds because the margins in Formula One are so tight. So he's not been a bad driver. But I think in Interlagos, the world will once again see how good of a driver he is. I think he'll be back. No, he's
Yeah,
not peaked.
he needs to be back, right? Because he's been outside of the top 5 in the last 2 races. And in the last 3 out of the 4 races, he's finished outside of the top 5. And he's gone, or rather, he's qualified outside of the top 5. And he's gone 4 races without a podium. He's lost the Drivers' Championship lead to Lando Norris after keeping it for, I think, 15 rounds, I believe, right? So he does need to bounce back. And he needs to bounce back immediately because, 4 rounds remain.
Yeah, and he cannot wait any further. Sure, there's been a little bit of a lean patch from Baku up until Mexico, but the championship standings have changed. Lando's leading, and Oscar goes from the hunted to the hunter now. The dynamic of that changes altogether. The thing is, Oscar doesn't have good results at the next set of races apart from Qatar. He's finished P14 and P8 at Interlagos. So there's a lot of records that he'll have to set straight, a lot of records that he'll have to improve. And that's why in that context, we need to see an Oscar Piastri from what we saw in the first half of the season. He really needs to come back for his own sake, for the championship's sake. Yeah, because you never really know what's going to happen after that.
And I'll tell you one more thing. Like, one of the reasons why I ask, has he hit his ceiling, is we are seeing a Lando we've never seen before in
Yeah.
2025. Literally, when Lando's taken that step forward, is Oscar unable to respond or not? Yes, there is a theory behind low grip circuits. Yes, data is showing that Oscar's not lost it. It was just Cota and Mexico, complete outliers, right? But Lando's taken a step forward, and suddenly Max is also finding himself there. So, is Oscar unable to sort of step that gear up? Was he, like Jacques Villeneuve said, complacent some of the rounds? I would love for him to prove all of us wrong. And like Satwik is saying, I want to see a clean qualifying weekend for Oscar, especially for the main race. And I think
Yes.
he needs that. He needs a clean session. Start on the front row, run away with it, and see what life gives you from there.
I love the banter in the comment section though. Abhishek is saying conspiracy of one good McLaren shared in two halves of 2025 by Oscar first and now Lando. No, I think I'll simplify it a little bit. I think it's the Man United curse, and whoever is supporting Man United are getting their dues in the second half of the year. And Lando Norris has just revealed he's a Man United fan, so maybe that's what's going on. And Abhijit is saying seems like Oscar is talking a lot with Mark Webber these days about the last few race weekends, if you know what I mean. Well, it wouldn't be bad for a number two driver to win the world championship, wouldn't it? I really feel Oscar can. Let's not count him out, guys.
Weber would be proud.
Absolutely. Weber would be proud. But while we talk about the World Championship, I also get this feeling, like I said, Ferrari and Mercedes are going to be in it. It's no longer Verstappen, Norris, Piastri in that order on the podium. At least that's the feeling, which means that there will be more points to lose. But there's one driver who I really would love to see fight in this. And that brings me to the question, what does Yuki Tsunoda need to do to retain his seat at Red Bull? Red Bull has not made a decision after Mexico. They've said we're going to make the decision by Abu Dhabi, which means they're giving him and they're giving the other drivers their time, right? Yuki Tsunoda was third year, his career best qualifying last year, right? In Mexico, he held back the chasing pack, making way for Max to jump up to P3 to go and finally chase Leclerc, right? So he sort of did what you'd expect a number two driver to do. But I get a feeling Yuki Tsunoda, if he gets into that fight, if he does what Perez did to Hamilton in 2021, he holds a couple of drivers back, he holds one of the McLarens back, Yuki's actually going to get himself that renewal if he does that. So he needs to do a Checo Perez.
I don't think he can do anything that'll get him the second seat now. I think it's done. I think it's done.
You think so?
I think there's one way how we can do it. If you take a look at the constructor standings, Ferrari at 356, Mercedes 355, just 1 point behind, Red Bull 346. The difference between these three teams is there's one team that's literally running on just one driver, and that is Red Bull. So for Sunoda's sake, if he's able to bring in enough points to ensure Red Bull manages to take P2, that's literally millions and millions in prize money. So he would have literally earned an extension if he's able to do that. So it's very simple but very hard to execute, of course. Qualify closer to max and ensure you get a couple of points in the bag.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's what.
Praveen has a view. Sorry about that, Kunal. Praveen has a
Yeah.
view. He says that Yuki has the advantage of being the incumbent driver along with the backing of Honda. I think that's a disadvantage, isn't it? I think that's a disadvantage because they're going.
They're going, but what could they be? Could they pay money to keep their driver on the grid? That's typically what happens, right? Like Toyota's trying to do with several of their drivers, with Haas. So all depends on how it's going to go. But Somil, I know you're going to have a birthday in 6 minutes,
Six
isn't it?
minutes.
In
Yeah.
6 minutes. So we are going to wish you a happy birthday. We're going to wish you a goodbye. We'll eat some cake on your behalf. Sundaram and I will continue for the next 5 or 7 odd minutes. And then I will see you on the official F1 commentary for Fan Code on Sunday. Of course, we'll speak before that.
Yes.
Lots of things cooking, but go for
But
it.
importantly, before I go, we need to get predictions so that for once you guys can actually deliberate about predictions and we don't just end the episode with that. So it'll be I'll be listening back. I'll have to eat some cake and then I will check back in an hour to see what you guys have said. Don't think I'm leaving. Don't think I'm like not caring about what you guys have said. But prediction time. And you guys are very welcome to comment. I don't mean Sundaram and Kunal. I mean Satvik, Praveen, Abhijit, uh, Abhishek, everyone who's here with us. Uttara as well. Predictions. Who takes the sprint win?
Max Verstappen.
Max Verstappen.
Max Verstappen. Who takes the Grand Prix win?
If it doesn't rain, Lando Norris. If it rains, Max Verstappen.
If it rains, Max Verstappen. If it doesn't rain, Max Verstappen.
Oh, you didn't say Oscar Piastri for a change.
Oh, you didn't. Wow. Okay, I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'm gonna say if it does rain, Max. If it doesn't, Oscar Piastri. And Sarika has got a one fine answer for all. She just says Max. Max clean sweeps, says Abhijit. Uttara says Max Max. My God. Are we a Max Verstappen favoring podcast now? Like, is it a do we love our Dutch listeners way too much, Kunal?
Well, lots of Dutch listeners, and I have to give a shout out. There was a listener from Mexico who, we asked a question: who's a Perez and a Hamilton fan? His name is Jesus, and he said, "I am a listener from Mexico, and I am a Perez and a Hamilton fan." So big shout out to you. But lots of Max Verstappen clean sweeps while we do that. Sommel, clean sweep the cake, eat some more cake for all of us.
I'm so sorry, guys. I really want to be here, and there's so much to discuss. Like Leclerc getting engaged, which is huge. We haven't spoken about that. These guys will so far. About the Women's Cricket World Cup as well. About last comment. Sorry. Sarika says, I believe Jemmy winning the World Cup as a Red Bull athlete is subtle foreshadowing for Red Bull's 2025 F1 title. You go, man. That's more like it. That is the comment of the day.
Sommel, out of here, eat some cake.
Sorry,
We'll
guys.
see you around.
Gotta go. But the
Well,
episode
very
still
happy
stays
birthday,
on.
Sommel.
Yes. Just leave. So, remember, let your uploads happen. Okay. So while we do that, and Sommel's, of course, off, right? I'm going to flip it. I know everyone wants to talk about Leclerc's engagement, right? He's experiencing marital bliss. I'm here to see if he can experience championship bliss, Sundaram. But you had a cool question. Can you say his partner's last name? And in my case, first name as well, because
I cannot. I've been trying to do that over the last 24 hours. I just know it's Alexandra, and I really don't want to try the rest. I'll absolutely butcher it.
Yeah, Alexandra, not Alexandria. Okay. Then we're going to take Abhishek Ramesh's comment saying, you guys have to talk about this generational fight in the constructors. 12 points between Racing Bulls, Aston, Haas, and Sauber, and also less than a podium worth between 9th and 17th in the Drivers' Championship. Formula One has peaked. I would say competition is closer than ever, which is why overtaking is a challenge, which is where qualifying, there is, I think, an overemphasis on qualifications. But we saw last year, Alpine just got a double podium in mixed weather conditions, and then boom, they just hit gold in the Constructors' Championship. And I believe there's 9 points separating Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. Your prediction, Sundaram? Who do you think's taking it?
P2 in the championship. Keeping in mind we have Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. This is difficult. I'm basically trying to figure out who between Hamilton, Tsunoda, and Kimi Antonelli is going to deliver more points. Safe bet. I think it's going to be Ferrari.
I get a feeling it's going to be Red Bull. I think, of course, Max Verstappen is going to score a bulk, but Yuki Tsunoda is going to feel more confident with the situation where he's been given more time. Can you imagine? We're not betting on Mercedes, even though they are currently, they just lost P2, right, to Ferrari, just about by 1 point or something. Okay. And then my closing question is Felipe Massa. Will he be in the paddock this weekend at Interlagos? A very loved driver, but he's taken Formula One to court. He's taken everyone he can to court to claim himself as the rightful champion for 2008. What's your take on that? Do you think he's a rightful champion for 2008?
Very simple take from an Alonso fan. Okay. Fernando Alonso and Renault should have been disqualified from that race, and they should have been disqualified from the championship. We've had drivers disqualified from the championship for doing far lesser. So if you were able to manipulate a race in favor of one of your own, then you are not supposed to be considered in the classification. So Fernando Alonso did win that race. So even if you kind of omit him from the standings, I think Lewis Hamilton finished P3 and Felipe Massa finished P13. I am not of the opinion that the entire race has to be cancelled or nullified. So even if you remove the Renaults from the equation, I think Lewis Hamilton still wins the title. I mean, I'm not checked the numbers if you go across the whole season. If you disqualify them, if there's a change in the point system, but I think it's a lost battle, unfortunately.
You know, I'm surprised that there hasn't been an out of court settlement on this, right? Because eventually he's trying to open the FIA and the F1 statutes, right? He's trying to, that whole black box where we Abu Dhabi 2021, the black box, for example, right? I Whether you get a disqualification of a race or of a team or a driver and all of that, I'm of this simple opinion. Both drivers deserved to win that year. Both drivers are rightful champions. It's just who won on that particular day. I don't want a decision to be reversed, but I'm curious to see what can actually come out of something like this. How much mudslinging will happen? Because F1's lawyers have already been saying, Hamilton was the driver of the season that year, and you lost to a better driver. There were more mistakes that you made. So it is damaging Massa's legacy more than doing any good to it. The only good that could come out is if he wins and he actually is told, hey, you're the 2008 champion. But what are the chances of that? Zero. At least I
I think
think
that's
so.
I think that's not happening, and you're actually right. It's very surprising that there's not been an out of court settlement. But if you put yourself in Felipe Massa's shoes and then see your career panning out the way it eventually panned out, that race that he won in Brazil 2008 was his last ever win in Formula One. He might not have thought that this should be the end of it for me in terms of being a title contender. And after literally 15 years, you finally come to know that the people who were supposed to have some sort of hold over the sport did not take a decision consciously because they wanted to preserve the integrity of the sport. I think if we were in Massa's position, knowing that he had the shot at only one title, I think we would have done the same. The fact is that he's had to go through so much of pain and anguish, knowing that the likes of a Bernie Ecclestone or a Max Mosley did not do something about it, is where I think he feels that he's been hard done.
And I'll tell you what, I this is the only instance of public race fixing that we've seen. And I'm saying
Yeah.
public. I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm just trying to say, let's not behave like there probably were not other situations. And I think what else hurts is that Flavio is back, Pat Simmons is back,
Yeah.
everyone else who sort of played a role in that moment is back like nothing happened. I mean, Flavio is almost going to be owning Alpine at some point with Christian Horner. So anyway, do you think we'll see him in the paddock? I hope we do. I hope that these situations don't take away Massa's pass of being, a former racer who have this red pass. You can just pretty much go to every race. Yes, they can tell him, Felipe, but you're here. You can't talk about the case. We're trying to respect you by having you as a very famous driver in the paddock. Please pay the respect back, but don't do mudslinging at this particular race. You can do it in the court, but so be it. Then I think that's what should happen, hopefully.
Absolutely, absolutely. I
Okay.
think it's. I mean, we've often had instances of the FIA or factions between drivers and the governing body, but I hope things are different right now, and Stefano doesn't do that, like you correctly said.
And while we are speaking of Massa, I am convinced that Gabriel Bortoleto is the future of Formula One in Brazil. I am convinced Gabriel Bortoleto is going to be the next driver top teams are going to fight for to hire. It's not going to be only Oliver Bearman. I mean, if Isaac Hadjar is anyway going to make that jump, it is going to be Bortoleto as well. And I'll tell you why. I think two reasons. Of course, he started off the season as he did, very close to Nico, but I think he had 4 Q3s and he scored points in each of the Q3, which for a team as Sauber, it's easy to qualify up and then suddenly fall back. So he delivered on those points. He's outqualified Nico Hulkenberg, a single lap specialist, for several seasons or several races this season as well. And in the last couple of races, Bortoletto's been 16th. I guess he will go better this weekend. I'd love to see how the Brazilians actually treat one of their own this season, because there have been rumors about Bearman replacing Hamilton at Ferrari, because Hamilton's not going to get offered an extension. It's all baseless rumors, right? So the rumor is Lewis Hamilton is not going to get an extension after his current contract ends in 2026, and Oliver Bearman is going to get that call up at Ferrari. What's your take?
It's quite clearly just rumors right now. I don't think so. That's exactly the case, and I don't think so. Ferrari is going to be taking any such decision so early, because they always have calling rights on Oliver Bearman. I think they can always pluck him out from that Haas seat and chuck him in a Ferrari. They can always do that because it's more or less they have that engine partnership, they have that arrangement, and it's not going to be easy. So I think this is not going to be sealed at least until the mid-season break next year. This is all just rumors right now, but few very interesting prospects in Oliver Bearman and Gabriel Bortoleto. I think both of them would do extremely well in a Ferrari if the opportunity comes.
Maybe that's the future. Bearman and Bortoleto at Ferrari, because I don't believe Leclerc is going to be there forever. He'll be with Alexandra forever, hopefully, but not with Ferrari. And Oliver Bearman got fourth in Mexico, Haas's best since 2016. But crucially, this race weekend in Brazil, he can clinch the qualifying head-to-head against the super quick Esteban Ocon in his debut season. And I think that is another beautiful, stat to track. Bortoleto out-qualifying Nico Hülkenberg, debut season. Oliver Bearman out-qualifying Esteban Ocon, debut season. And I believe the next two drivers to leave Formula One could actually be Hülkenberg and Ocon. Whether it's 2026, end of 2027, I don't know. But that seems to be the trend. But on that note, we're going to take a few comments. Abhishek is saying, based on current point system, Lewis would have won 2008, 243 points to 240. Uttara is saying, well, if so many good drivers are there, we need 3 drivers per team. I would love that. Why look for a 12th team and 11th team? Just have more cars per team. They anyway make them, right? On the topic of should Felipe Massa be there in the paddock, Abhijit is saying, if Flavio can be there, why not Felipe? And then finally, I'm going to go back to one of my favorite comments. India has won the Women's Cricket World Cup for the first time. I saw a lot of your tweets and stats, Sundaram. But Sarika's comment is beautiful. She's saying, I believe Jemima Rodriguez winning the World Championship as a Red Bull athlete is a subtle foreshadowing of Red Bull Racing's 2025 F1 title with Max Verstappen. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we're gunning for this weekend. 33 points for Max, driver number 33. See you after the race.